What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Alex, I'm a DP based out of St. Louis. Today we're going to be breaking down a commercial I shot about 3 years ago, and we're just breaking down the cinematography, breaking down the lighting, and kind of talking about how this commercial was dual purposed. Alright, before we break down this commercial, we're just going to watch it all the way through and then go from there. All right, so earlier I had mentioned this is a dual purpose commercial. What does that even mean? So 3 years ago when I shot this, we were actually shooting for my church. This was a bumper video for one of the series we were doing. And so I knew at the time, I wanted to create spec work. And so I was like, all right, we're gonna shoot this, but then I'm also going to, use all the footage for this commercial piece. And so that's what we did here. I think it turned out halfway decent for, shooting it 3 years ago and me not really knowing what I'm doing. Real quick, everyone likes to talk about gear. What did we shoot this on? This was shot on the Red Dragon 5K, the DZO Vespid Primes. We only had the 21mm and the 35mm. And then all the gimbal shots were shot on a Canon R5 with either the Canon 2470 EF, or I believe we shot with that one wide shot we'll get to. It was a 20mm FD lens. So that's kind of the gear we shot it on, very minimal. And then lighting wise, we had a Godox 60W, like a 150 watt light, and then two Nan lights. So very, very minimal. So with, I feel like we got some good things out of it with the gear we had. All right, so breaking down this first shot, we're here in the gym and he's doing like kettlebell raises on this like turf. So let's break down the lighting here. Again, we have 3 Pavo tubes, a 60 watt light, and a 150 light. And so not much power for such a large gym. Also, we the first thing we did, shut off all the lights in the gym. We want to be able to control the light. Everyone knows that. And so what we did, first things first, I had a reference image in pre-production. So I kind of knew what I wanted this to look like. So that kind of started with this shaft of light here. We have the 60 watt light up on a C-stand, and we just kind of placed him where I wanted him roughly in frame. And then we put this right here, and that again is just giving him all this edge right here, and just showing we used haze in as well. So that's just giving a lot of texture here, and this nice shadow we see here. So in the background, we want to, again, dark gym, we want to light it up. So we have the 3 Pavo tubes here. They're just gaffed to these squat racks. And then literally this one is just set on this ledge here. And then for the key light. So we have all this nice texture. We have a backlight. We have all this stuff kind of adding little specks of light on the background. But the Red Dragon light hungry sensor, and we had an ND on the front, just adding a little bit of a look there. And so we needed to fill in his face a little bit. And you could maybe say he's a little bit hot here, like exposure wise, but I think it looks fine. We needed to bring up the ambience and his face. So camera right, we had a 150 light going through a 6x silk, and that is most likely at 100%. And again, that is just giving him some fill. This is a very basic shot, 3-point lighting, not even 3-point, I guess it is 3-point lighting. It's very basic, nothing crazy, but I think for what we had, it looks pretty good. And again, I think things like this, we didn't have much gear, trying to light such a large space, just in pre-production, try to find those reference shots and try to figure that out. And I think one last thing with this shot, because we had haze, that's obviously bringing up the ambience. When we fill the entire room with haze, that acts as, honestly, you could say our 5th light here. That's bringing up the entire ambience of the location. And so that's giving us quite a bit of exposure here. All right, so this is one of my favorite shots of the shoot, actually. I just think it looks really nice. Her skin tones are so rich. Like, it looks phenomenal, actually. So this is super simple. I want to say a 2 or 3 light situation once again. Very common. We're not working with many different setups here. All right, so right above her, we had the 150 or 60 with the dome 150, just aperture dome light, and then, or excuse me, dome attachment. And then we had the aid crate on that, and that's just kind of minimizing spill. You can see that the light really isn't reaching here that much. So we wanted to centralize the light just on her. And then we had a pavo tube just below the bench right here. And that's giving her all this exposure here, which I think looks so nice. We have this nice top light giving her a nice exposure here. If this were an ad for, let's say, an Apple Watch, we have a beautiful amount of light on here, so we're seeing the product really well. And then same thing, let's say this was a spot for First Form, the brand that she's wearing right here. I feel like she's just centered up really well in the frame. This is on the lower third. And I feel like that looks really nice for product placement. Same thing when she was on the squat rack doing squats. Her placement of the logo there for First Form was really great. Oopsie. This is one of my favorite shots, and it's just a really simple shot, but I think it's because the lighting is so simple. Her skin tones are super rich. She's very, very symmetrical within the frame here. She's very just well centered up, and then again, skin tone's so rich. We have a nice vignette, natural vignette on the outside here. And it's really bringing your eye to her, which is what we want to see. All right, so let's break down the shots we got at the track. So with this, we have no lighting, no diffusion, nothing to cut the light or anything like that, and that's okay. We're utilizing the sunlight that we have. We're shooting during sunset, and you don't need to do honestly anything besides maybe backlight during these shots. So camera right, we have. Let me change colors here. Camera right here, we have our sun, and that is giving all this exposure here. All here, and then we have a lovely amount of light right here outlining him. And then we go in here, and that gives us all this shadow on his body, all of this shadow right here. We have these nice long streaks, and that is giving us a lot of nice color contrast. And along with all that, if we see here, we not only want to light our subject really well, but we're talking about composition. That is also a part of cinematography. And so we have the track here, and let me just get rid of all this. I think we did a pretty good job here. This is a whip pan of him running on the track. And what I love here is we just see these leading lines of the track here. And even inside the track, we have each of those lanes. Not very good. We have each of those lanes, and that's giving some texture. That's giving some direction for our eyes to actually look at. And then he is well centered in frame. And then along with the curve that we have, and we're putting him in this curve here, coming nicely into frame, into this corner here. It's a bad job. We have this right here. And this is just giving him, we're cutting the frame into three little spaces here. So we can even give ourselves some grid lines. And so we have him centered up pretty well. We have the image cut into perfect thirds. We have the sky up here, the midground where he's at, and then this foreground, you could say, and the bottom here, and then also these beautiful leading lines that go along with the direction he is going. So I think that's another thing. We have the curve of the track going to the left side of frame, as he is also going to the left side of frame in his action. And so that all corresponding with the light we have, again, lighting here, having all of this, and then giving him some nice shadow here and the shadow on the ground. That makes for a really good image, and we really didn't do that much. It was very simple. All right, so a lot of the shots here on the track and field are very similar, not in the sense of the same shot, but how we lit it and put the composition. We want it backlit, and we want leading lines. We have a lot of lines and different things on the track and field, and that's kind of it. We have a lot of good stuff here. So once again, we are backlighting the subject here, and I believe in post we might have done a little mask here. You can see that this Let me try to get the brush up here. You can kind of see that there's this spot of light here and this spot of light here. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think that was in post. I think, so if we see a wider image here, you can tell that the sun is coming down through some trees and that is blocking a lot of light. And so we have all the shadow here and over here. And so I think the sun is just naturally hitting him in a very nice area and then falling off also very naturally. We might have put some mask here, but we can see that we have him backlit here. The sun's coming in nicely. That's giving him, again, a nice amount of shadow here on his legs. We're having a little bit of contrast on the shoe. And then we see this long shaft of shadow here coming off of his legs. And so all of that mixed with, if we clear this off, we have these lines. And we're not only seeing the lines, but again, the top part of the frame, all of this is shadow. And then we see all of this is in the light with a mixture of shadow here. And so this is bringing our eye, it's giving a lot of interest to our eye. And then again, a lot of contrast. And that's it. That's as simple as it needs to be. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Use the sun, backlight your image, and try to find a good composition with lines and leading lines that bring your eye to where you want the viewers to see. All right, so that was the breakdown for this fitness commercial. I think for being 3 years old and me not knowing what I was doing, I think we did a pretty good job. I think there was a lot of good, simple techniques used that made pretty decent images. So if you have any more questions, want to see the insight of what it's like becoming a DP in this new age of filmmaking, or any other thing like that, follow along, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.